There may be, I'm sorry that I've arrived late, so if they've been asked, let me ask. I think, I understand you don't want to ask about Northwick Park, but I think apart from Northwick Park, in terms of type 1 A&E, the Charing Cross figures, certainly for the period running up to Christmas, were about the worst of any hospital in London. I personally don't think that's... I personally don't think that that's coincidental, that those are the two closest hospitals to the A&Es which closed. I know you've been asked about whether you think, by Councillor Fenimore, whether you think it was sensible to do that. And you gave a slightly wrong answer, I think, there, if I may say so. You talked about the existing inadequacies of Hammersmith A&E. I think the question we want to know is, with hindsight, if not with foresight at the time, do you accept that the really poor figures, particularly for Charing Cross here, really poor figures, 2/3 of people being seen within, are consequent on the closures happening at Hammersmith and Central Middlesex?
So the Charing Cross, if you look at the level of attendances, has remained relatively static. We had not anticipated any of the movement of patients from the Hammersmith closure to the Charing Cross, and so I think what we've seen, particularly across the early part or latter part of November and December for the Charing Cross, is a significant increase in relation to the winter period, and clearly at that point in December, our performance around type 1, about how we were managing that environment, was nowhere near as it needed to be. But I don't think that I can correlate the closure of the Hammersmith EU with the position at the Charing Cross in December, because actually the step change in activity figures, if you look at the step change in where patients have attended, we saw that step change as planned being from the Hammersmith to St Mary's.
Yeah, we all know that there's been there's crisis in A&E generally, but I'm talking about between the figures immediately before the Hammersmith closure in August, early September, you're running about 90% on your type 1 Charing Cross, and then you go down quite dramatically in the run-up to, and you're still down there, you're somewhere between sort of 65-75%. There's a very, very substantial drop. You don't think that's got anything to do with Hammersmith and Central Middlesex closing?
So for the Charing Cross, we've done a lot of work in terms of looking at some of the postcode conveyancing, the postcode attendances, and the changes that we've seen at the Charing Cross have not been evident in terms of a shift of activity that would be from the...
It's a coincidence. It's a complete coincidence.
I'm just giving you the facts of what we've looked at in terms of postcode conveyancing and what we've seen in terms of the step change. That step change has been to St Mary's.
Which is also performing very poorly, not quite as poorly as Charing Cross, but still very poorly, down at 80% or below 80% at the moment. Is that as a consequence of the Hammersmith closure? So
I think I'd indicated to the committee that what we had seen post the Hammersmith EU closure has been two particular issues. One has been the volatility in terms of attendances that could vary from a given day to another day by anything sometimes up to 100, 120 attendances, and that has had commensurate impact on admissions. And the second effect that we have seen is the level of Category A conveyancing, which is the more acute conveyancing, particularly to St Mary's, and particularly from postcode servicing St Mary's over the period post the Hammersmith EU closure. So that is something that I think I'd said here is the new kind of normal that we have to cope with, and we have to adjust the way that we're managing our capacity to deal with that. So we clearly haven't got that right because we're not delivering the performance to the level that we should do.
And you're, so just one quick one. Well, yes. You're talking in your actions for improvement about some things you're going to change, like 9 additional beds at Charing Cross in February. it's still at the moment your intention to implement the Shaping a Healthy Future programme, is it not? And to go ahead with the closure of the Type 1 A&E at Charing Cross and the loss of most of the inpatient beds there. Is there any thought going on in Imperial as to whether you should at least review that policy in the light of your experience over the last 6 months? Are you going? I mean, I think a lot of members of my constituents, if they'd heard your answers just now, would think you're in a complete state of denial. My question is, given where we are, which is a perilous state, an appalling state of service that you're giving to people of this borough, are you going to look at the very, very substantial reductions in service that you're planning for Charing Cross Hospital?
So I think we're back at the committee in 2 weeks' time, where we're picking up the wider issues to do with SAF and also our CQC action plan. So I'm sure with time permitting we'll be able to give more detail.
A yes or no now to that question. Are you going to look at it again, or are you going to press on regardless?
So I think we will come back and we will be able to answer that now. I'm here to talk about the A&E position, and I think I've done that very fully this evening.
Tiny point of clarification on the council last question. Does that mean that your foundation trust application is delayed or on hold because of the CQC report, and is it also as a consequence of your financial situation?
So the only reason that our FT application is on hold is because there is a requirement as part of the process to gain a good CQC rating before you can progress. And so because we gained a rating that requires improvement, by default we are having to be re-inspected at a period in time, probably within the next 12 months. And at that point we'll re-engage with the FT process.
Okay, let's
thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.